I was the sickly younger sister of my older brother, who passed away years ago. 7 years after leaving the world, I was suddenly bound to a teary, sniveling system. Hurry! You have to go back and save your brother. He's about to destroy the world. I blinked in confusion. Wait a minute. Are you telling me that idiot brother of mine, the one who couldn't even tie a ponytail properly, is now a supervillain about to end the world? So that's how it is. Your brother was supposed to be the devoted, long-suffering second male lead. The heroine was his unreachable first love. But now, he's about to fire her from the company. At this rate, he's going to destroy the male lead's company too. And once the hero and heroine lose their narrative halo, the entire world will collapse. This is total plot anarchy. The system sounded firm, but its voice cracked on the last word, like it was about to cry. Okay, fair. I could tell it had officially run out of ideas. I rested my chin on my hand, studying it thoughtfully. So you came to me, to get me to kick my brother out of his own company and destroy it in the process? Seriously? This system wanted me to commit familial treason? Absolutely not. The system. It hesitated, then mumbled with obvious guilt. Not exactly. Your primary mission is to stop your brother from going dark. Gain his trust first. I'll return later and tell you how to stop him from acquiring the male lead's company. And one more thing, whatever you do not reveal your identity. With that, the system tossed me straight into Peter Gummer's company. My brother and I were abandoned by our parents as children. We grew up clinging to each other for survival. I was born frail, plagued by illness after illness. He was 2 years older than me, juggling school and part-time jobs, raising me with hands far too young for the task. But no matter how hard we tried, the sickness wouldn't let up. Looking back now, maybe I was always meant to die young in this world. And he was always meant to be the loyal second lead helping the female protagonist. I passed away at 15. In the original plot, the male and female leads follow the classic lovers reunited arc. Early on, Thomas Hartman, the male lead, came from poverty. Liliana Whitelock, the female lead, was a wealthy heiress. Years ago, their love was forcibly torn apart. She was sent overseas. He, thinking she'd dumped him out of pride and wealth, held a grudge. He spent years clawing his way up, eventually becoming a rising tech mogul. Meanwhile, her family went bankrupt. She returned to the country and joined my brother's company. At first, my brother took special care of her, because she bore a slight resemblance to me. Thomas Hartman was aggressive, domineering, and possessed an overwhelming sense of ownership. Liliana, by contrast, was resilient and sincere. Over time, my brother found himself drawn to her purity, and inevitably became the extra player in their toxic, twisted love game. In the end, he could only wish them happiness from the sidelines. What a textbook second male lead, right? But me looking at all that, all I could think was, that guy. The one who couldn't braid a ponytail without stabbing himself in the eye? A final boss? Yeah, no. I didn't buy it. So with that disbelief sitting heavy in my chest, I took a deep breath, relishing the feeling of being healthy again, and walked toward the elevator. Good morning, Mr. Gummer. Morning, Mr. Gummer. The man himself? I turned to look. My brother acknowledged the greetings with a polite nod, his entire aura screaming, do not approach. He walked slowly toward the elevator. Suited, sharp, and severe. His expression was stone cold, eyes narrow and upturned, skin pale with an almost sickly sheen. He coughed twice as he approached, the sound dry and muffled in his throat. He looked unwell. His gaze was cast downward, shadowed and unreadable, giving off a brooding intensity. I stared, slack-jawed, years apart and, what the hell happened to my brother? System, I want a refund. Where's my sunny, warm-hearted big brother? Give him back. I saw that familiar figure drawing closer. Quietly, I raised my hand like the others and chimed in. Good morning, Mr. Gummer. My brother's eyes were downcast. The moment he heard my voice, he paused. Just slightly. His lashes fluttered. Then he squinted at me, lifting his head with the slightest hint of suspicion. I kept my expression calm. After all, the last time he saw me, I was 15. I'm 22 now. I look nothing like I did then. Still, I couldn't stop the nervous flutter in my chest. It's been 7 years. Would he recognize me? Turns out, he didn't. He stared at me for a few seconds. And maybe it was just my imagination, but I thought I saw the faintest flicker of amusement pass through his eyes. Then, just like that, he looked away again. Right at that moment, the elevator dinged open. My brother stepped inside, brushing past me. Morning. A flat, emotionless syllable. So, this is what growing up means? You don't even recognize your own sister? I tried not to let it sting. 7 years was a long time. Forgetting was only natural. Before the doors could close, I stepped in after him. We stood in silence as the elevator began to rise. Then suddenly, my brother turned his head slightly. Those long, narrow eyes landed squarely on me. Rachel, right? You're new in the secretarial department. His voice was low, giving nothing away. I nodded. Yes, Mr. Gummer. First day on the job? Yes, Mr. Gummer. The elevator stopped. The doors opened with a soft ding. He stepped out without so much as a glance back. Stick with me for the day. I blinked. Understood, Mr. Gummer. He finally turned and gave me a brief sideways glance. Parrot much. Oh, you wanna play that game? I smiled sweetly. Ma'am, Mr. Gummer. His footsteps faltered, just for half a second. So began my first chaotic day shadowing my brother. I was on a mission. Stress test his patience to see if there was still a line he wouldn't cross. I nearly spilled his coffee all over him. He dodged gracefully, giving me a look that said both "Why are you like this?" and "I've seen worse." I handed him the wrong set of documents. He calmly made a call and had a new set sent up, not even sighing. Whatever I did, he didn't flinch. There was something oddly tragic about it, like a man too tired to care, too numb to bother. Beautiful in a bleak kind of way. No matter what I threw at him, he just kept that same expression. Cold, jaded, unreachable. I stared at him from behind, equal parts impressed and horrified. Brother, when did you become this Zen master of indifference? That afternoon, Mimi Green from the team couldn't take it anymore. Maybe she thought I was about to get fired before the day even ended. She leaned in with a hushed whisper. Rachel, sweetie, what are you doing? Are you trying to get yourself booted on day one? Why are you copying Liliana Whitelock of all people? She used to be a Whitelock heiress, sure, but she was hopeless at her job. She's been demoted from secretary to some regular department now. Honestly, it's strange. Mr. Gummer doesn't usually tolerate nonsense. He hasn't even snapped at you once today. Maybe because Liliana was even worse. She got chewed out so bad, she cried multiple times. But then again, she did make some serious mistakes. I recalled what the system said, how my brother was supposed to be the gentle second male lead, someone who healed the female protagonist with unwavering warmth and support. But from what I was hearing, no. If he'd reduced Liliana Whitelock to tears several times, then in her eyes, he was probably a cold-blooded boss from hell. What healing? She'd be too scared to even meet his eyes. Forget it. If my brother can't do it, I will. After work, I headed down to the parking lot first. Today, Thomas Hartman was here at Gummer Corp to discuss the acquisition proposal. A meeting this important. And the male and female leads wouldn't get a scene here? Yeah, right. I didn't buy it. Sure enough, the moment I turned the corner, I saw Thomas Hartman sitting in his car with the window rolled all the way down. He had that small beauty mark under the corner of his eye. The one fans always swooned over. He was looking at Liliana Whitelock, who stood beside the car. His jaw was clenched, tone cool and cutting, with a glint of unmistakable mockery in his gaze. Well, if it isn't Miss Whitelock herself. What happened? How did you fall this far? Running errands in Peter Gummer's company now. Seriously? Out of all the employees in a corporation this massive, Thomas Hartman still managed to spot exactly what Liliana was doing? I ducked behind a pillar, stunned by the sheer force of his male lead aura. His eyes practically radiated plot power. Liliana turned her head, offering a strained, pitiful smile. Her lip trembled as she bit down on it, eyes misty but defiant. My situation isn't any of your business, she said, her voice low and steady. Unless, Mr. Hartman, are you still hung up on your ex-girlfriend? Thomas scoffed immediately, his laugh sharp and cold. You wish. You think that's even possible, Miss Whitelock? I just couldn't stand seeing someone with your credentials wasting away here. If you're that desperate, I can always give you a job at my front desk. Better than being stuck in Peter Gummer's shadow. Liliana stiffened, jaw tight, spine straight as a rod. Her eyes burned with resolve. No need. Mr. Gummer treats me very well. I'm happy working here. I clapped a hand over my mouth. Damn. Liliana Whitelock could really lie with a straight face. If I didn't know the truth, I might have been convinced by how sincere she looked. Too bad someone was convinced. At the mention of Mr. Gummer, Thomas gave a cold little snort. Well then, I suppose I was mistaken. Clearly, Peter Gummer means a lot to you, for you to speak in his defense like that. Just like you, he added darkly. You were able to walk away from me back then. Of course you'd latch onto someone like Peter Gummer now. Excuse me, what? What did my brother ever do to you? I was this close to bursting out from my hiding spot. Just then, I heard footsteps approaching from behind. I turned and saw my brother. He'd obviously caught the tail end of their exchange. He glanced at me, then turned, ready to march right toward them. Without thinking, I grabbed his sleeve and blurted out, Peter. Wait. Don't go out there yet. The words came out naturally. Too naturally. My tone was casual, familiar, the kind you'd use with someone you'd known for years. As soon as I said it, both of us froze. Crap. Why did I say that out loud? For a moment, Peter Gummer's usually unreadable eyes looked like a storm was brewing underneath. He stopped walking. Then slowly turned to look at me, gaze sharp and unreadable, his voice dangerously quiet. Peter. Oh no. The system said not to reveal my identity. I blinked fast and tried to salvage the moment. Ah, Peter, I mean Mr. Gummer, you shouldn't go out yet. He stared at me, long and hard, saying nothing. The silence pressed in like a vacuum. I didn't dare explain. The more you say, the more mistakes you make. So I just widened my eyes innocently and looked at him, all doe-eyed and pure. After a moment, he looked away. When he finally spoke, his tone was light, but edged with something unreadable, something probing. Peter. He chuckled once, then muttered, almost to himself. Rachel. That's a good name. What the hell was I supposed to say to that? Cautiously, I tested the waters. Ah. Thank you, Peter. He shot me a glance, and for the first time all day, smiled. All right. Keep calling me that. Then instead of walking away, he pulled me to the side, hiding with me like he was ready to watch a drama unfold. Apparently, we were staying to enjoy the show. Outside, Thomas Hartman was clearly riled up by Liliana's declaration that Mr. Gummer treats me very well. He started to lose control of his mouth. Liliana's eyes turned red as she snapped back. At least Mr. Gummer keeps his personal feelings separate from his work. Unlike some people, who use their power to bully others. Burn. Thomas's face went so dark, he could have summoned a thunderstorm on the spot. He couldn't even form a decent retort, just sputtered and started hurling personal insults toward Peter Gummer. Cold-blooded. Emotionless. Psychopath. I glanced sideways. My brother was eating this up, expression casual. He even nodded a few times, as if rating the insults. Had he always been like this? Was he a drama-loving masochist now? But as Thomas's words grew nastier and nastier, my hands clenched into fists. Breathe. Alice Gummer. Wait for the right moment. The mission comes first. Stay calm. Just a little longer. Screw it. He insulted my brother. I stormed out. What's wrong with you? Stop insulting our Mr. Gummer. I stepped in front of Liliana Whitelock, shielding her as she nodded furiously beside me. That's right. Don't talk trash about our Mr. Gummer. I'd marched out furious, but now I couldn't help wiping a bit of sweat from my brow. This world really was unhinged. Girl, your soulmate is standing right in front of you. Thomas Hartman shot me a glare sharp enough to slice through steel. His brows arched high. And who the hell are you? Get out of the way. I couldn't help it. I lifted my foot and kicked his car. A perfect, dusty footprint marked the sleek black paint. The system gave me $30 million for survival in this world. I couldn't spend it all if I tried. If I had to pay for damages, so be it. Who am I? You don't deserve to know. But here's a tip. Stay the hell away from our Liliana. Thomas stared at me like I'd grown a second head, then turned to Liliana, his voice low and seething. Liliana, did you bring this person here just to piss me off? Before she could even answer, my brother stepped out from the shadows and placed himself firmly between us. Peter Gummer cast a brief look at me, then turned his attention to Thomas Hartman. His tone as cold and flat as ice on glass. Mr. Hartman, he said, yelling at my employees on my property and lecturing me at the same time? What exactly are you trying to do? Thomas blinked, as if suddenly remembering where he was, and who he was talking to. Reality clicked back into place. With a final venomous glare in our direction, he climbed into his car and drove off in a squeal of tires. Peter turned to Liliana, calm and composed. Workday's over. You may leave now. Thank you, Mr. Gummer. Liliana gave him a grateful glance and quickly disappeared. Now the parking lot was quiet. Just the two of us. My brother turned to face me, his gaze steady and unreadable. I looked down, suddenly feeling sheepish. I told him not to go out, then ran out myself the moment I heard someone bad-mouthing him. What even was that? Heroic impulse? Double standards? But Peter didn't scold me. He just stared for a beat and then asked, Rachel, right? All right. Rachel, can I buy you dinner? I blinked. Whether it was as a sister, or just an employee responding to her boss, I couldn't bring myself to say no. I smiled. Yay. Thank you, boss. Peter Gummer didn't hesitate. He took me to the most luxurious restaurant in the area. We rode the elevator to the top floor. The atmosphere was serene. Spacious tables, soft lighting, and a gentle flow of classical music in the background. The window beside our table opened up to a breathtaking view of the entire city skyline. We ate in silence. I kept my head down, quietly finishing bite after bite. I didn't speak, and neither did Peter, until he suddenly asked, his voice quiet. What's wrong? You don't like the food? I don't know why, but his question caught me off guard. I choked. He immediately reached for a glass of warm water and handed it to me, his fingers trembling just the slightest bit. I accepted it without thinking, drinking a big gulp. Wiping my mouth, I gave a small smile and looked down. I love it. It's perfect. Thank you, Mr. Gummer. Love it. Of course I did. This restaurant was the one I told Peter I wanted to visit before I died. When we were kids, we walked past this road together. Back then, I looked up at this very restaurant and tugged at his sleeve, pointing toward the tall sign. Big brother, do you think if we eat up there, we'll be able to see the whole city? Do you think we could see the prettiest sunset from up there? Peter was only 14 then, still a child himself. He followed my gaze, tilted his head up to the building sign, then crouched down to my level and smiled. I don't know, he said softly. But maybe, once I earn enough money, I'll bring you here, Alice. How's that? Okay. Promise me. You have to bring me here someday. But that day never came. At least, not before I died. I looked up at him again. Peter's gaze was deep and still, like a lake undisturbed by wind. His eyes met mine with quiet intensity, as if doing it on purpose. Then he smiled. Just a little. I'm glad you like it. I stayed on at Gummer Corporation under the name Rachel. The system handed me a task list that read like a bad drama script. Engineer private encounters between the male and female leads. Speak favorably about Thomas Hartman in front of my brother and the heroine. Even sneak some harmless business intel to Thomas behind the scenes. So I acted, clumsily, awkwardly, under Peter Gummer's nose, like some second-rate spy. But somehow, I couldn't shake the feeling that Peter knew. That he had seen through everything. It felt like he wasn't fooled at all. Just letting it slide. Like a director who's already read the script and chooses to play along anyway. I couldn't explain it. Just instinct. Every time I was frantic over my next task, Peter would say in that calm, cool voice, "No rush. Take your time." When I forced myself to say things like, "Mr. Hartman is actually quite capable," Peter would respond with a soft and then without missing a beat, change the subject. "What do you want for dinner?" It was strange. And in some ways, my job as his assistant was more like being his life companion. It was ridiculously easy. Sometimes I'd bring him coffee, sometimes print a few documents. Most of the time, I sat in the office next to his, scrolling through my phone, waiting to be called. I watched him carefully, trying to figure out why the system had labeled him a major villain. One day, a junior employee came in with a question. Peter glanced at the report, head bowed, and offered a few quiet pointers before sending them off. Through the glass, I watched that scene. It looked familiar. Exactly like how he used to help classmates with homework back in school. Aside from his sharper, colder demeanor, and the fact that he spoke far less, he was still the same. Still him. But I also noticed something else. Peter's lifestyle was a ticking time bomb. No meal schedule. Constant late nights. Endless cups of coffee every single day. It was unbearable to watch. So one afternoon, I swapped out his coffee for plain tea in the break room and brought it to him. He was reading a document, eyebrows already starting to furrow. He glanced down at the cup, then back up at me. "You switched it." I shook my head, guiltily, but with fake confidence. He probably knew the moment he smelled it. But he took a sip anyway, then looked at me again, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "All right. You can go." I smiled back. "Okay, Mr. Gummer." Later, while chatting in the break room, I pulled Mimi Green aside, whispering with concern. "Has Mr. Gummer always been like this? So much coffee, barely sleeps. Is he not worried he'll drop dead from exhaustion?" Mimi raised an eyebrow and poured herself some hot water. "I know, right? Back when the company was just starting out, I went with Mr. Gummer to a client dinner once. I was the only woman at the table, and all those old executives kept trying to make me drink. He blocked every glass for me. After that, every time we had to entertain, he ended up drinking so much he nearly puked. Now that we've grown bigger, no one really dares push drinks on him anymore. But his stomach took a hit. He's got a serious ulcer. He's been hospitalized more than once from the pain." After hearing that, I started hounding Peter every day to eat properly. He'd dismissively reply, "No appetite. Can't eat." I begged, "Mr. Gummer, please. If you're not well, no one will be well. You are the company. Peter." He let out a quiet laugh, turned his face away, his lips twitching with a smile. "You're overestimating me. The world won't stop turning just because I do. We're all just insignificant people." That last part he muttered so softly I couldn't catch it. All I saw was a faint, bitter curl of his lips. "Ha! What did you say, Mr. Gummer?" "I didn't hear." He straightened up and coughed lightly. "Nothing. I'll eat. Just leave it here." "All right. Make sure you do, okay?" I headed to the restroom to wash my hands. But just as I reached the door, I heard voices inside, talking about me. I stopped and listened, curiosity piqued. "Have you noticed? Mr. Gummer's been acting weirdly nice to that new assistant. Right? He lets her get away with everything. If we made those kinds of mistakes, he'd have snapped already. She's all sweet and innocent on the outside, but honestly, she's gotta be playing a long game. That's some next-level strategy." "Really? Bathroom gossip? With no regard for acoustics? Do they think people in the stalls are deaf?" I was just about to walk in and say something, when another voice rang out, cold and clear. "Did Mr. Gummer hire you to work or to gossip behind people's backs?" And for the record, Rachel is not what you think. It was Liliana Whitelock. One of the two didn't back down. "Oh, look who it is. Miss Whitelock herself. Weren't you the one who got chewed out and reassigned? I'm defending your honor here. So go on, tell us what Rachel really is." Liliana's voice didn't waver. "I don't need your defense. I got reassigned because of my own mistakes. And as for Rachel, she's a good person." Wow. Totally got hit with a nice girl card out of nowhere. The three of them walked out just as I stepped in. I got a perfect look at each of their faces. The first two looked thoroughly awkward, heads ducked as they quickly made their exit. Liliana, on the other hand, lit up the moment she saw me. There you are. The way Liliana Whitelock looked at me. It reminded me of the neighbor's dog from years ago, the one that waited for its owner every day at the gate. Wet-eyed, a little pitiful, but full of trust. Liliana, thank you for standing up for me. It's nothing. She shook her head quickly, her tone earnest. You helped me at the parking lot last time. And you're a good person. You and Mr. Gummer, you're both good people. Another good person card. My emotions were complicated, to say the least. But hidden in her words was something that caught my attention. She didn't seem to fear my brother the way the original plot said she did. There was something else there. Something almost like gratitude. Interesting. In the story, my brother was supposed to be her quiet, unrequited admirer, the gentle foil to Thomas Hartman's domineering love. Yet now, not only had that gentle backup supposedly traumatized her, she was still calling him a good man? Why? I decided to probe a little. Don't worry about what those two said earlier, I said lightly, looping my arm through hers. They're not worth your time. Then, as if just making conversation, I added, Mr. Gummer may seem cold, but he's soft-hearted. I've messed up plenty, but he's never really yelled at me. Did he ever help you too? You seem to speak up for him a lot. Liliana blinked, then lowered her gaze, her voice soft. When I first joined the company, I didn't know anything. I made so many mistakes. Mr. Gummer was harsh with his words, but after scolding me, he'd always ask Assistant Ben to teach me everything again. Later, he just moved me to a position that suited me better. There was also one time. My family suddenly needed money. Mr. Gummer advanced me 6 months of pay. He didn't even charge interest. Her eyes reddened slightly as she looked back up. Everyone says he's cold and unfeeling, but I think he just doesn't know how to show it. I froze. That was nothing like what the system told me. According to it, my brother was supposed to be driving the heroine out of the company. According to the office gossip, Liliana had been demoted. But from her account, it sounded like Peter was actually helping her, just in his own way. How was this the behavior of a blackened villain tormenting his white moonlight heroine? Still lost in thought, I returned to my desk, only to notice Peter's office empty. The lunch I brought him sat untouched on his desk. A sinking feeling crept into my stomach. I rushed over to Mimi Green's cubicle. Where's Mr. Gummer? He's not in his office. Mimi looked up from her computer, her face grim. His stomach's acting up again. It got bad. They just sent him to the hospital. I froze. Already. Mimi called after me as I bolted for the elevator. Hey, Rachel. Mr. Gummer said for you to stay and... Whatever came next, I didn't hear. All I could see in my head was his pale face, the way his brows furrowed in pain. I hailed a cab straight to the hospital. 7 years. Liliana had mentioned he'd been in and out of hospitals all this time. So for 7 years, he's just been working himself to collapse, over and over again? When I finally got his room number and reached the door, my steps slowed. Through the small glass pane, I saw him half reclined on the bed, eyes closed, face almost as white as the sheets. And 4 lines trailed from the back of his hand. My throat tightened instantly. I opened the door as quietly as I could. He seemed to be asleep. His breathing shallow but even. I sat down by the bed, staring at his gaunt face. My fingers twitched, wanting to reach out, but I hesitated, afraid to wake him. In the end, I only tucked the blanket a little closer around his shoulders. Brother, I whispered, my voice trembling. Why can't you ever just take care of yourself? The system shrieked in my head. Host, calm down. You're breaking cover. I ignored it. But before I could pull my hand away, a larger, colder hand shot up and grabbed my wrist. I gasped. Peter's eyes were open. Sharp, awake, and far too clear. Not a trace of confusion. Only calm certainty. And something deep, unreadable beneath the surface. So he'd been awake all along. He looked straight at me, his voice low, hoarse from exhaustion but steady. Alice, he said, every syllable heavy with quiet conviction. How long do you plan to keep pretending? The system's voice cracked in panic. Oh no, we're screwed. I stood frozen, unable to move. So, he had known all along. From the moment I called him brother. Or maybe even earlier. From the moment I stepped foot into his company, he had already recognized me. All the disguises. All the careful performances. To him, it must have looked like a clumsy little play. Bro. I opened my mouth, trying to come up with an explanation. Trying to echo the system's warning and deny everything. But looking into his eyes, not a single word came out. Because he was my brother. The system was practically combusting in my head. But in his eyes, there was no shock, no accusation. There was only quiet exhaustion. That cautious gentleness he always carried. Now, he looked like a traveler who had finally found shelter in a storm. Peter Gummer let go of my wrist, coughed softly. then reached up to brush his fingers gently across the corner of my eye, wiping away tears I hadn't even realized had fallen. "Over there," he said, pausing. His voice so soft it might have scared off a butterfly. "Was it a good life?" And just like that I broke. The tears came faster. He didn't ask, "How did you come back?" He didn't ask, "Why are you pretending?" He only asked, "Was it a good life?" Because that's what he's always cared about. Whether I was okay. I nodded hard, voice choking with tears. It really was. That world, there was no sickness. I lived to 22. I'm healthy. I'm happy. Just like how I look now. It was the truth. And also the version of truth the system had built into the storyline. But only I knew. The real Alice Gummer had died at 15, frail and fading on a hospital bed. This version of me, the one standing here, was nothing but a lingering soul fueled by obsession and borrowed energy from a system. I had no memories of those supposed 7 years. Just fabricated files. A void filled with fake history. Peter listened quietly, leaned against the side of the bed. Eventually, a small smile curled at the corner of his lips. "That's good." He lowered his gaze, concealing something deep within. When he looked back up, his face had returned to its usual calm, but his voice had softened. "So, this time you came back with a mission?" I hesitated, then nodded. I couldn't lie. Not to him. "Let me guess," he said. "You're here to stop me from acquiring Thomas Hartman's company?" I wasn't surprised he knew. He must have pieced it together from all the recent errors I'd made at work. I nodded again. "Why?" he asked simply. So I told him. "The system says, you're supposed to be the second male lead. That at this point in the story, you should be helping the heroine. Supporting the main couple. Not standing in their way. If you force your way in, the world will collapse." The system, silent for a long time, finally muttered in my mind. "Wow. You really don't hold anything back, huh?" Peter fell silent after hearing me out. Then, unexpectedly, he let out a quiet laugh. There was bitterness in that sound. A kind of mocking awareness. Like he'd known, suspected everything, from the very start. Second male lead? Here to make way for someone else. Peter Gummer let out a cold scoff. This world. Why should anyone be born to step aside for someone else? He looked straight into my eyes, and said slowly, each word heavy with conviction. "Everything I've done, every move I've made, has had a reason. Maybe my methods aren't clean, but the goal has always been the same. To become strong enough that I never again lose the things I want to protect. I just want you back." I didn't meet his eyes. I only smiled and said gently, "Well, I'm back, aren't I? And I'm not going anywhere again." Peter stared at me for a long time. Then the corners of his mouth lifted. Just barely. My brother insisted on being discharged after just 1 day of observation in the hospital. I couldn't convince him otherwise, so I brought him home. Not to that cold, sterile high-rise apartment downtown he usually stayed in, but to the old worn-down little house we lived in as kids. He had bought the place. Preserved it. Every corner spotless, every detail meticulously maintained. On the table sat a photo of me, taken when I was 15. In that moment I understood everything. These past 7 years. He had never really moved on. The system was still muttering in my head, worried the mission had failed, worried the world was on the verge of collapse. But I wasn't afraid anymore. If the smooth operation of this world depended on my brother sacrificing his own happiness, just to fulfill the love story of a mismatched couple, then let it fall apart. Because my mission was never about saving the world. It was about saving him. Turns out, my brother had sensed the presence of the storyline, all along. He'd felt something pulling him toward Liliana Whitelock, something unnatural. And so, he pushed himself harder. Worked himself to the edge. All to earn enough money, to shatter the cruel script laid out for him. To protect the people he wanted to protect. This whole scheme of derailing the plot. Was it all just to bring me back? But, I can't stay. I smiled, finally at peace. Now, maybe all I could do was help him untie the last knot in his heart. I found Liliana Whitelock and Thomas Hartman. I told Thomas what Liliana had once confided in me. The truth behind their breakup. How the Whitelock family forced her hand. How she had tried again and again to contact him, only to be shut out. At first, Thomas didn't believe me. His eyes were dark and furious, on the edge of violence. Until Liliana, red-eyed, finally admitted it all herself. For the first time, Thomas Hartman looked lost. Fragile. Peter Gummer. His voice was rough. He knew, didn't he? I nodded. Maybe his methods weren't ideal. But yes, Mr. Gummer was trying, in his own way, to teach Liliana to stand on her own. And to help you realize what you were about to lose. Some misunderstandings need to be cleared. But whether a broken mirror can be made whole again, that's up to them. I had done all I could. In the end, the acquisition of Thomas Hartman's company by Gummer Corporation proceeded on schedule. But it didn't end in destruction, as the system had predicted. With Liliana's support, Thomas identified and resolved the core issues within his company. He approached Peter Gummer with a proposal, not for a full buyout, but for a strategic tech partnership. It was the best possible outcome. Hartman's company and pride were both preserved, and Gummer Corp gained a long-term investment with significant growth potential. Peter offered a fair price. He allowed Thomas to retain most of his shares and managerial control, on the condition that he cooperate fully with the upgrades and reforms ahead. After the signing ceremony, Thomas looked at Peter with a complex expression. In the end, he held out his hand. Mr. Gummer. Thank you. Peter shook it, light and brief. Business, he said. Mutual benefit. In my head, the system dinged. Mission complete. Timeline stabilized. Well, you scraped by, it grumbled. But I guess that counts as success. The world hadn't collapsed. It wasn't perfect, just a passable ending where the male and female leads found their way back to each other. But the system had learned to settle for moderation. Compared to Peter's earlier attitude, where he looked ready to burn the entire script to the ground, this was a win for everyone. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the conference room. Everything felt okay. That evening, Peter and I went back to the rooftop restaurant again. This time, we sat in the same perfect spot. Brother, I said softly, slicing into my steak. From now on, eat on time. Cut back on the coffee, okay? Peter Gummer looked at me. All right. No more staying up all night working. All right. You should smile more. You used to look really nice when you smiled. He blinked, a little caught off guard. Then slowly, the corners of his lips curved into the gentlest of smiles. All right. And just like that, the ice melted. Spring broke through winter. In that moment, I saw him again. The sunny, awkward boy from years ago, fumbling to tie my ponytail with clumsy fingers. The boy who, too young, took on the weight of a home. Who forced himself to grow strong, just so he could give his little sister shelter from the world. But I knew. My time was running out. The system's energy was fading. This world was rejecting me. Harder and harder. Because in its eyes, I was already gone. I set down my fork and knife, turning to him with all the seriousness I could muster. Brother, I'm sorry. I lied to you about the acquisition. I may be leaving very soon. It had been a temporary lie, a way to stop him. To stall. Peter froze. As if the world had turned to ice around him. The color drained from his face. He said nothing. I blinked away the sting in my eyes and tried to soften the blow, spinning the gentlest lie I could think of. The system said, when you live a full life here, when you grow old, we'll meet again in another world. He finally lifted his head, his voice thin. Really? Then he bit down on his lip, forcing a smile. Okay. I'll remember that. Pinky promise. He reached out his hand. We linked pinkies across the table. I began to paint him a picture. Told him about that other world. How there was no illness. How I'd been happy. How I was still happy. I begged him to live on well and brightly. To carry my share of life too. I'm sorry, brother. I lied again. Peter was silent for a long time. Then finally he smiled back at me and said, then you too, when you go back, eat well. Live well. He raised his wine glass. To Alice. May you know peace and joy wherever you are. My vision blurred. I lifted my glass with both hands, clinked it gently against his. And to my brother, may you live a long, long life, and may all your wishes come true. The night I left was painfully ordinary. I sat on the couch in Peter Gummer's office, quietly watching him work at his desk by the tall windows. My body had already begun to turn transparent. The system whispered in my ear. Mission complete. Timeline stable. Host, it's time to go. I took one last look at his silhouette. And in my heart I said, goodbye, brother. Be happy. Please be happy. Peter paused, as if sensing something. He turned around suddenly. But the couch was already empty. He stood there for several seconds, staring in silence. Then walked over, and sat down slowly in the spot where I had been. Redemption? No. He was simply a brother. One who had been pretending not to see, so he could let his sister take care of him one last time. Or maybe, a patient. Maybe his sister had known all along. Maybe she saw that he had already made peace with the world. That he had quietly accepted her fate. That he was ready. She knew that if she asked him to live 100 years, he would. Because he never denied her anything. Because a brother always grants his sister's last wish. And so Peter Gummer would live. He would carry on until the day they met again. Someday he would find her. He covered his face with both hands, and tears slipped silently down his cheeks. Even if that day never came. From then on only he would know that the sister he loved most in the world had once come home. Extra. Peter Gummer was alone again. But he was no longer the walking corpse he once was. He still went to work every day. But the people in the company whispered to one another. Mr. Gummer had changed. He was gentler now. Less intense. He ate on time. Slept regularly. Just like he'd promised his sister. He was living well. He even adopted a cat. Named her Alice. She was adorable. A little ball of soft fur and mischief. He suspected the promise of meeting again in another world was probably just a beautiful lie she'd told to keep him going. But he chose to believe it anyway. He believed she would come back. Liliana Whitelock often stopped by his office, asking where Rachel had gone. She left the country, Peter would tell her calmly. She's building her future overseas. Liliana's shoulders would sag a little. She didn't leave any contact info? Peter would pause, then say, "It's okay. When the time's right, she'll come back. Then I'll wait." And just like that, Liliana would smile again and go on with her day. She thrived in the company. Within a year or two, she'd become the manager of her own department. No longer a wealthy heiress, but content all the same. Her relationship with Thomas Hartman improved too. They were both busy, always caught up in work, but they made time for the occasional sweet, quiet date. Whenever they asked for time off, Peter would usually approve it. The system still made itself known sometimes. Its tone stern, its logic sharp. But its voice always ended with the faintest quiver, like it was trying not to cry. One afternoon, someone knocked on his door. Peter looked up instinctively. A young woman stepped in, probably just past 20. She was all sunshine, smiling brightly as she caught his gaze. Then she winked. "Hello, Mr. Gummer." He froze. Then slowly, the corners of his mouth curved upward. "Hello." Of course. He always knew she'd come back. The end. Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.